Okay, we're well over our hour, so I want to try and sort of wrap things up. Okay, final question. Why did Fischer stop playing off 72?
Ooh.
It's a big one. But it's obviously...
This could take us into the third hour.
This could take us into that.
There are various interpretations. I kind of think he'd done it. You know, he'd achieved his lifetime ambition. He wanted to take the crown off those cheating Soviets, as he saw it. Where else was there to go? I also think that his illness was beginning to kind of kick in, and again, when he was due to play Karpov in 1975, he made, I've forgotten how many scores of demands, and they were all conceded apart from two, I think, one or two, and it wasn't enough for Fischer. I mean, some people say he couldn't face losing. His personality was so built around his success as a chess player that his self-esteem would crumble if he lost. I think you know, he was becoming sick. He'd achieved what he'd always wanted to achieve, and he'd become a recluse by then. And
I just want to break in here. Uvenhob is saying, how did Fischer manage to win with his inferior openings? Didn't he take openings seriously? In fact, Fischer took his openings incredibly seriously. But for instance, here he played a slightly offbeat variation. Brilliant tactics or strategy. You know, he obviously was testing his opponent, and Fischer had done his research, and well, he caught his opponent out very
from
well.
a young age. He had studied extremely hard at chess. I mean, he was obsessive, as we know about. Chess was his life.
By the way, that reminds me, Tal actually said, before Fischer, we were all amateurs. Fischer was the first true chess professional.
Well, I wonder what he means by that. Certainly, Fischer was obsessive about preparing for his games, and he studied the openings a great deal. What Tal might mean, which is true, is that before Fischer, it wasn't conceivable, unless you were Soviet, to be a professional chess player. The idea that you would make your living from chess was open to very few people. Suddenly, after 72, for a short period, until the money dried up again, if you were a top chess player, the money was there for you to make it as a professional.
Well, I think it's partly that, but I think that it's a reference to actually the depth of Fischer's opening preparation, which was phenomenal, and the fact that he worked so hard at the game. Merdin is saying, how old was Bobby in the game you now showed? Bobby was, I think, 20 years old. This was from
63.
The US Championship in 63-64.
So I think that's the championship he wins every single game.
Where he won with 11 out of 11. Which was an extraordinary performance, because, you know, it's not as though the US, as a nation of chess players, was particularly poor. The US had some fantastic chess players, and to win with 11 out of 11 was extraordinary. So, Fischer was 20, and this was from the US Championship he won. Overhoff says, well, I mean, he played the King's Indian attack, not the most aggressive opening, but he did find new ideas. Fischer, when he played the King's Indian attack, well, you say it's not the most aggressive opening. That depends how you play it. Fischer, I mean, we've all seen some of those fantastic attacks that Fischer won with the King's Indian attack. So he played it very aggressively. Remember, it's not particularly the opening that you play that says whether you're aggressive or passive or whatever. It's how you play the opening. You know, this is a constant theme in these programs. People ask me, well, is the Budapest counter gambit a good opening, or is the King's Indian a good opening?
It is if you play it well.
Exactly. It's not what you play; it's how you play it. There are actually very few openings that are really poor, but it's about being a good chess player. Rubin is saying, without question, without doubt, he did so much for the chess players, being a businessman, not a nice and fair sportsman.
Well, so he always said, I only play chess for the money. Fischer would say. It was nonsense. He didn't know what to spend the money on. He made a lot of money, but actually, despite his claims that actually it was all about the money. That was not true. It was about the chess. But he had a vision for chess. He wanted chess to be seen as on a par with other professional sports. He saw Muhammad Ali fight for huge sums of money, and he thought, well, the top chess players should be paying for exactly the same amount of money. And in the end, people took him seriously.
Uvenhobe says, yeah, well, okay, but what about the Spanish exchange variation versus Smyslov? I mean, for a player that wants to win. Well, absolutely. Fischer found new ideas in the Spanish exchange variation and played that to win, and actually had extraordinary success with the Spanish exchange. So you're reinforcing my point.
There's one for you.
There's one how you play the position, and not what opening you play.
There's a good question for you, Dan, not for me. Did he have any chess weaknesses?
Well, let me see. I think the point that was made earlier, that perhaps a slightly narrow repertoire, although in the 72 match he seemed to have cured that, and actually expanded. We saw a whole range of openings, but yes, for example, he majored in the Najdorf. Well, a fantastic opening. However, he almost lost against Spassky in the second half of the match when he played the Najdorf, his favourite opening. So, but I think Fischer could have cured that very easily, and I think was curing it in the 72 match by expanding his repertoire. Mephisto Waltz is saying, why did he play c4 for the first time against Polugevsky in that candidate cycle? He was broadening out, and I think that's what he needs to do. Folks, I think we're going to have to wrap things up. I just want to thank David Edmons very much for being our guest tonight. And just
Thanks,
another plug for the book, which, here we go, Bobby Fischer Goes to War. It's a fantastic book. If you haven't got it already, it's a really wonderful read. And if you haven't seen the Bobby Fischer documentary that came out in the summer, I don't know whether this was released over in Europe as well, but it's absolutely wonderful. It's just come out on DVD in the UK.
Bobby Fischer Against the World, it's called. Yeah.
Which is fantastic. So, okay, David, again, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
And see you in perhaps a month's time, folks, for the next show. Thanks a lot, folks, for all your questions. Bye now.